Hi, so here's another off-the-cuff production. Got little Greenie here with me. This is going to be not so much a tutorial on how to play Oh Danny Boy, but it's going to be more a sort of a expose of how to learn something. And it's not the only way; it's just one way. But I wanted to go over just a process from sort of a very basic sort of step-by-step approach to something a little bit more finished. And so we're not going to do the whole piece. We're only going to actually do the first phrase of the first chorus verse. What am I talking about? Sorry, first verse. And there's several phrases, like we've got, oh, Danny boy, the meow meow, the pipes are. Oh, I'm in the wrong key. Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are blowing. I don't know what it is. And meow meow meow. I should learn this word at some point. So that's the first part of it. And so we're gonna, go da 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 dee 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 da 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 da, and only go that far. That's it. So there's several phrases, and that actually, can break into two little tiny phrases. It can go. There's your first phrase, and then the second phrase would be meow 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 meow, and a slightly longer phrase. Uh, and so the way that I try to do things is one thing at a time. um, And if you think of what you're really doing, the most basic thing is you're getting one pitch after another, pitches being your letter. So you don't need to know how to read music for this. Certainly helps, but you can just follow along hopefully, and you know what I'm talking about. You do need to know how to what the names of the strings are. So you probably know that by now. And if you don't, then it won't be so hard to learn. Um, and then if you think of the second thing that is important with really a lot of instruments or singing is, not just the pitches, what notes to play, but or sing, but the rhythm, the counting. So those two are kind of universal. And then because you're playing the harp, you're using fingers. If you're playing trombone, you'd be using slides, or flute has little buttons and fingerings too. If you're a viola player or a guitar player, the fingers are numbered differently. And harp, it's numbered like it is in piano, and sort of to me makes sense because your thumb is one. If you're playing a violin or something, your second finger is one. And the only way I play viola, and the only way I could cope with that was just to think of how many fingers were on the fingerboard. Um, because I'd see a four and I'd immediately go with my pinky, and it's really no, yeah, it's okay. My brain is doing viola, so I've kind of flipped into that. My If I see a four, it used to be anyway that my fourth finger will go down because that's what it is in piano land and on harp as well. There was a moment when I translated. I was playing the viola in the back of the viola section in order, so part because I liked it in the caboose seat, but also so I could get up. And I was also covering the harp parts on the piano, and so I got to the piano and I looked at the harp part, and it was obviously treble and bass clef. I couldn't read it. So that was the moment I knew I'd arrived in alto clef, because that's what the viola reads. Anyway, it's things like that. But not to go off too far off a tangent, but so you're dealing essentially, think about this, with pitches, finger numbers, and counting. And we're going to do each thing separately and then put them all together. And you can do all of those things off of the harp. So, and again, we're not going to use any kind of staff notation or, sheet music or anything like that. We're just going to go kind of, just visually and explanatorily and by, sort of by ear, which I think everything should be anyway. So, the other stuff is just, a way to write it down or to record it. Um, you know, Say it for posterity. But anyway, um, so pitches. We have essentially, if you think about the opening little lick, I'm not going to play all of it. Just goes, um, you know, B C D E D E A G E D C A. And if you notice, you've got how many pitches? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And so you're dealing with 12 letters all strung in a row. And to have to kind of, let's say, memorize that would be a challenge. Somebody figured out, I don't know who it was, but whoever they are, uh, if it was a study, I don't even know, but someone came up with the idea that people can only remember about 7 things. And that's it. And so if you think of your phone number, it's 7 digits, but it's three scoodled together, and then you get a hyphen, and then four skernoodled together, and then the area code goes in the front, 1, 2, 3. So you got essentially 10 numbers, but you're going 3 plus 3 plus 4. And so that becomes a lot easier to decipher. It's the same thing on this. If you go, instead of going 12 in a row, you're going to, let's say, do the first four together. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you could do maybe the next group could be 2, 1, 2, and then another group, 2, 1, 2, and then the last group would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're essentially going 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4. And then you could even do 4 plus 4 plus 4. You could go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of dealing with 12 notes that are completely unrelated, like a DNA strand, and having to memorize all the ACGs, whatever they are, I don't even know. What is it, ACGD? What is this? Does anyone know what they're? Uh, I used to know at some point. Uh, but it's like a hashtag where you get a whole bunch of words all strung together, and the only reason why you're able to read it is because of where the spaces would have been. But then you have to sit there and think, what does that say? And then you start to see where the words are. But it might take a little while to decipher. But you know, that's helpful at least to be able to be able to figure out, well, that's a word and that's a word and that's a word. Think of it the same way on the harp. If you had 12 notes strung after one after the other, it'd be much harder to play and much harder to remember. And also when you get to higher levels of expressive playing, for example, you're actually thinking in those little words of 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 4, or maybe 4 plus 4 plus 4. There's other ways of grouping it too. You could have done 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3. You could have done that too. That would have been fine maybe. The way you think about it is often the way you play it. If I say, if it's a two-syllable word, for example, you would have one syllable accented more than another. Um, and Also the way if you're using timing, you tend to move things closer together that are words, maybe take little breaks in between words, with just some slight breaths, in between those little tinier phrases. Um, and with dynamics too, you might be shaping, not only the whole phrase, but also little parts of the phrase, that idea. But anyway, that's for later. We're going to get into the what I call stage 3 playing later. But right now we're just stuck in stage 1. And again, I compare it to if you're just doing the pitches, which are their letters and what are the strings you're supposed to pluck. If you had like a plate of rice, uh, if essentially if you had all 12 of those notes you had to kind of absorb and put in your brain all at once, that would be harder to do. And so that's like taking the entire plate, of rice and going, and trying to chew it all down and take a big gulp. And you probably choke on it, hopefully not. But, and then the other alternative, the other extreme, which is where you're taking one little grain of rice, and plopping it in your mouth and chewing it thoroughly 30 times and swallowing, and then another, 2 hours later, you're still not done with the 12 grains of rice practically. And you've gotten really nothing out of it. You're still hungry. So, um, if you do things in little bunches that are manageable, little spoonfuls, here's 4 and here's 2 plus 2 and here's 4, here's 4 plus 4 plus 4, a lot easier. And also it's a lot easier to remember. Obviously BCDE spells what? Book D. But uh, think of it like the word, dog, horse, or whatever it be, dog, cat, pig, or could be horse, could be anything. But it's a lot easier to remember clusters of things. So we're gonna deal with that. And also, I don't do finger numbers at the same time. And here's why. Because especially with the little kids that are just learning, the very beginning, they can probably figure out how to play the piece with the finger numbers because their hands are sort of stuck in a spot. So it'll be the equivalent of something like this, doing a placement. And then your hands are always, one finger is assigned to one particular string and you just wiggle your fingers. Now kids can pretty much figure out their finger numbers and play the piece, and that's nice. But I'll say, well, what's that string or what's that pitch? No idea. Especially when we get into staff notation, they don't know what it is. They're looking at finger numbers. I notice too, even if they write the pitches in, they're not looking at the ups and downs. So like the C would always be, here, and they don't realize, well, no, there's a C up there too. So I've learned to teach the kids, so that it's assured that we learn the pitches to do just one finger only. And that way they're not, stuck in a spot and they're not relying on finger numbers to find the pitches. So okay, so here's what we're going to be dealing with pitches. So ready? B, C, D, E. I'll put it on the screen so you can see it. Is the first, goober. Can you see it? And then the next one goes D, E, A, G. So the first one went uppity, uppity, up. This one goes up, down. So it goes D, E, then it goes A, G, goes down. And then the last one goes totally down. It goes E, D, C, A. Okay, so you got, let's do that again. So you got 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, B, C, D, E. You have, let's make the next one a group of 4. It goes D, E, A, G, D, E, A, G. Just use one finger. And then the last 4 go down. E, D, C, A, E, D, C, A. Okay, and be aware of where your intervals are. Sometimes it's going to be every note that goes straight up and down, what are called seconds. And then you go, down a second, up a second, and then you're going to skip 1, 2, 3, 4, up a fourth, and then down a second, and then you're going to skip down a third. E, G is a third. So E, D, C, step, 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 and then you skip down another third. That idea. So if you need to rewind because I went too fast, I'm sorry. But that this might be a good stopping spot to kind of try that out. We'll play some, with sondos while you're trying it out. Here we go. And we're back. I have no idea. All right. So that's Exhibit A, pitches. And so notice we talked about them off the harp. We did them on the harp, one finger only. So let's just say that's, for now, pitches. Okay, the next step is finger numbers. So I usually write them in for the kids because they don't really know. But again, we worked in manageable bunches, and fingering, no big secret, is just trying to find as many pitches as will logically fit in one hand position. Essentially, some of it's defined by where your thumb is, some of it's not. But and also it depends on the content of the music. If this makes sense to connect this together rather than have part of a word like Camille and then Ian horse, chameleon horse. It doesn't make any sense anyway. But you wouldn't say Camille and then Ian horse, right? You would go chameleon space horse. And even if your hand positions need to, because of fingering, need to have a Camille and then a Ian horse, well, at least you know what you're doing. But that's completely getting off into weird world. But anyway, not necessarily though. You'd be surprised. But anyway, the first 4 notes fit in 4 fingers, and again in harpland we place. So you have B, C, D, E, right? And so I would write the fingerings in because I know ahead what they are, but I'd have the kids actually do it off the harp or off the piano. I don't teach harp actually, but I teach piano. And so they would place their hand either on the music or on their lap or on a table or on the the lid pulled down over the keys, or they'll do it on the where the music rack is, and they'll just go 4, 3, 2, 1, leave it down. In their case, they'd probably go, they might be touching the tops of the keys, so they essentially are placing, but they're also going one finger at a time, like B, C, D, E. So even if you're not touching all of the keys in the piano, they're you know they're thinking of that as a unit of a unit of thought. Essentially it's 4, 3, 2, 1, right? 4, 3, 2, 1. On harp you actually have to put them all down first and then remove them one at a time. Can you see this? So 4, so here we go. So place 1, 2, 3, 4 down. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the next one is going to be, I don't even know, let's try it. I go 2, 3, 1, 2, and I've already crossed over. So, and again, the way you think about the little blobs of the little phrases, that will determine what your fingering is. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as, hold on, 2, 3, 1, 2, and ignore that crossover for now. So what was it again? 3, 2, 1, 2. So then you got to go 3, 2, 1, 2. No, I could have gone, place 4, 3, 2, 1. I don't know. 4, 3, 1, 2. We could have do that too. Doesn't matter. So here's what we got so far. 4, 3, 2, 1. And you do it up here first. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then again, because I know ahead what the fingering is, it's either going to be 3, 2, 1, 2. So you do that here, 3, 2, 1, 2. Or if you want to try a different fingering, it could be, uh, 4, 3, 1, 2, and then you would do, place all that 4, 3, 1, 2. Don't do the flipper yet. We'll do it later. And then the last part would be 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's what it is. Let me try it. Yeah, it is. Okay. So you would go, place again 1, 2, 3, 4, and go 1, 2, 3, 4. You might want to do that middle one as 4, 3, 1, 2, because then you'd have placement of 4 fingers, placement of 4 fingers, placement of 4 fingers. It keeps it consistent. You don't have to. I don't know why I do it the way I do, but you try different fingerings. What's important though is that you set it so it becomes motor memory and automatic pilot, right? All right. So here's the next step. Is then you try. So you've done pitches, thought about them, said them out loud, made words out of them, little bunches, and then you plucked it with one finger, just a quick review here, in little bunches like that. Um, then you've done finger numbers off the instrument, and you just got that coordinated, right? The next step is to meld those together. So very slowly, there's no rhythm at all. We're not counting at all. We're not there yet. So it's going to be place B, C, D, E with 4, 3, 2, 1, and give it a twirl. Okay. Uh, the next part would be to place the next group of fingers, whatever it's going to be. Sometimes your two does double duty, so you can't place it except for the very beginning. And so it's D, E, A, G. So I'm going 2, 3, 1, 2, right? And then the last placement is E, D, C, A with 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's another spot where you might want to rewind and just review. Again, there's times when you lift your hands off the harp and then you replace, and then you have a crossover. I'm not dealing with crossovers, and don't worry about lifting your hand up the harp, because you could have just as easily gone. So essentially what I just did was I went 4, 3, 2, and before I played the 1, I actually touched the beginning of the next group, which is a D, and then you replace that way. You could do it that way with a 4 or with a 3. I just don't. I literally come off, partly because that I want the D, which you're hitting in the first phrase, to continue to resonate. Does it make sense? The sustain, you don't want to dampen it. So when you're doing that third thing, which is melding together the pitches and the finger numbers, you say one or the other. You could even do like Battleship, where you say, B4, C3, D2. You sunk my battleship. E1, that idea. You could do just the finger numbers, 4, 3, 2, 1, or you could do just the pitches, B, C, D, E. Does that make sense? But say something out loud every time. So you do that enough times so that you've got it, so it's secure. Now, there's one school where the teacher says, now, sit up, child, pay attention, and practice that for half an hour a day. And I don't know why I just did that voice, but anyway, Kate Bush, she's got that in her Hounds of Love album, the B-side. Yes, you have to put the time in. Not going to say that, but practice smarter, not harder. I'm of the school of thought where you do repetitions, but do them 3 times in a row is usually the sort of, the third time's a charm. And in a row is the operative part of that sentence, because you need to get it perfect every time. If you do it perfect the first time, perfect the second time, and then you almost get it perfect the third time, but if you miss the last note, guess what? You go all the way back to the first time. You got to get it 3 times in a row. But you'll be surprised. You could spend half an hour doing it wrong every day and never get it. Or you can actually spend maybe 10 minutes a day or 10 minutes that first day getting it right. Again, practice smarter, not harder. So who wants to practice more than they want to and not get anywhere? I mean, I kind of like practicing. I think it's fun. I like the challenge, but I don't like to be frustrated and feel like I'm getting nowhere and treading water or sinking. So again, I'm always trying to think of ways to make it easier for people to learn stuff. So this is what I've come up with. This is what my teachers taught me, either directly or sort of, you know, um, maybe they did teach it directly and I just didn't get it. But indirectly, some have taught it, I suppose, or you just get it through osmosis, by example, or just, I don't know. But I've had one when I was in graduate school, very methodical teacher who really built on all the stuff that my other teachers had done, and really sort of, at least maybe at that point, I was ready to really kind of, take it in directly. Whereas before, I don't know if I was, but we all get there somewhere, hopefully. So the last thing is counting, and you can do that off the harp too. Many ways of counting. We could talk about note values like, um, every eighth note's a mom, every quarter note has 2/8 notes squished inside, so that could be cookie. Every half note has 4/8 notes inside, so that could be Mississippi. Could be anything. A 3 dotted quarter note has 3/8 notes squished inside, so that could be bicycle. Halloween molecule, could be anything. You might want to come up with a word that has an accent on the second syllable, like kalimba. That has a, you know, um, three syllable word, 3-part word. Anyway, so you can count that way. You can go, not saying rests. Well, you could go mom, 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 cookie. Mom, 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 cookie. Mom, mom, mom. You can do it that way. And that's a nice way of counting too. I like using words, especially for the beginners. And even, for more advanced people, when we get into 16th note counting or whatever, um, it, it takes away the confusion of finger number counting with the actual counting. So you're not confusing numbers. And sometimes, literally one, two, three, four, if it falls in the right spot is where your counting is, that can be a little confusing. I have several kids that go one, two, three, four, fun, because they're trying to say five and they realize halfway through the word that they're saying one, which is your counting number, and five is your finger number. We don't have that problem in Harpwith because we don't have a five, right? um, there's another way of counting too, which is instead of saying mom, cookie, Mississippi, bicycle, all that fun stuff, you can go to numbers, but each, make it very local. Each uh, counting pluck is going to be, instead of saying mom, you say one, cookie, you say one, two, bicycle, one, two, three, and Mississippi, one, two, three, four. Every single note you do starts with a one. So this would be like one, 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 two. Then you go one, 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 two. You could do it that way. If you consider the E to be not just, one, two, saying the rest like that. If you consider that note value to be actually three bonks, one, 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 two, three, one, 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 two, three, because of the sustain in the note. I'm not talking about that yet. I'm only talking about just the attack of the note. So not the sustain or the release. So we're just essentially going to have an attack of a note. You just say the number, whatever that is. And then, you obviously you're going to be thinking hopefully about the sustain of the note and the release of the note too. But if there's dampening involved, or if some notes sort of sneak in, with the illusion of sneaking in with a crescendo, that's starting to get off, but still relevant. You can give illusions of things on piano and harp too. How that applies to counting. Um, if it's sneaking in, then it doesn't really have a definite attack. Clarinets can do it real easy. They just come in from nothing and just go out. Wind instruments can do that. Singers can do it too. But anyway, so getting back to counting, the real way, the quote unquote real way, is the way that most people do it, which is, one and two and three and four. And in this case, we have if you're going to write it down, it would be every measure would be, if you do it this way, 4/4 means four quarter notes, and each quarter note equals two eighth notes, one, two, three, four. And so how many eighth notes do we have? One, two, three, four, five, 7, 8. You could count to 8. You can go, uh, you'd say 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That idea. Normally we don't count to 8. 7 has two syllables anyway. So, which, all the other ones have one syllable. So it's not as effective way of counting maybe. It's good to do as for, practice, and you can still do it. You can do two groups of 4. You can go, what would it be? 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You can do, 4 plus 4. Most people though count, and they learn how to do this, is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So you have 4 numbers and you have 4 ands, and that adds up to 8. So in this case, we're starting, before the measure comes in. It's almost like we have, and then the dog, is running through the sauerkraut, or, Oxford patch, of an ox patch. It would be, you'd say 1 and 2 and 3, and 4 and 1 and 2, and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So, if we break it down into little bite-sized amounts, it would be and 4 and 1, and 4 and 1. In between, you have whispered 2 rest, and 2. Then you would have and 3 and 4. That's the end of that little 4-note group. And 1 and 2 and 3. So the and 3 is 2 rests. So you could say it that way. So that's just giving you some ideas, hopefully. I mean, I've tried all kinds of ways of counting. One girl who literally 2 weeks before the recital could not count her piece. And so it was The Last Rose of Summer. And there's already words written to that. I just don't know what they were, and I don't think they weren't written in the book. It's a piano book with just, the piano arrangements. And so 2 weeks before the recital, I thought I tried everything, kids inspire your little bag of tricks. And so this girl, um, I noticed she could memorize song lyrics to the rhythm of the song. And so I said, you know what? We're going to write um, words to your piece. Again, even though there were ones, we wrote our own, and all had little, verses and, the right syllables in the right spot. The prosody was good, and the content was good in terms of what we were saying. I said, look, go home and memorize that, and then be able to sing it to yourself in that rhythm. That memorize the words we came up with, and then sing it to yourself while you're playing the piece. And that totally worked. She got up on stage, and you'd never know that she couldn't count the more conventional ways of and two and three and four and all that stuff. So for her, that's what was needed. And so later on, she became one of the best counters I've ever had. She did the Beethoven Pathetique C minor sonata, and that da da dum ba da da. That's like one measure lasts for an entire line, and then it goes on to the next line, and it's halfway there. There were like 64th notes, I think, of counting, and she learned how to count every single moment of that piece. Of that, especially the opening page is just nothing but subdivisions of quarter notes, and dividing it up into I don't even know what, like 16 divisions per quarter note. Is that 64th note? So I mean, we had to draw it out and write out how we were going to count it, draw where the big beats were and where the subdivisions were, but she could totally do it. We didn't have to make up words for that one by then. So you just the example of that is don't give up, because eventually, if you don't get it now, you eventually will. We have to find a way, though, for people to at least play. It's the same reason why they put people in a spot. I call it C smush. It sounds like a big old smush, and they do that mostly just to simplify things so that you can start playing right away. Little kids get very impatient and give up, and that's understandable, and frustrated, and but uh, I do say, I get some kids that say, "Well, this is boring," or they'll say, "I'm not having any fun," or and some legitimately they just can't handle it. It is too frustrating. So I'm not unsympathetic to that. But I think being bored and not having fun is part of the lesson. And there's many things that are worth doing that are not fun and that are kind of boring. I think playing an instrument requires a lot of repetition, which to some people could be boring. To me, I just feel it's very relaxing. And I like having this as a methodical approach, because then I have an idea of how to do something that works step by step by step. So if you can follow these steps that I gave you, just for the right hand, then you're in luck. Um, and it may not work for you. Maybe you've got to do another version of step by step by step. But I found that the way I'm doing it here, breaking it down into smaller little pieces and then trying to perfect those pieces and then putting them all together very gradually is very good. And some weeks, you can't do more than pitches and fingers. You can't do the counting. So then if I have a kid that comes in there and says, look, I got my right hand this week up to the finger number level, I'm like, great, perfect. That means that you're thinking in a system and a step-by-step approach. And that's what I'm after. I'm after the process of your learning so that you don't need me anymore. You can go learn it by yourself and you'd be great. I had one lady who could learn up to what I call stage two, which is to basically get it all hands separate, all hands together, or part separate, whatever it is. Learn all the notes, basically be able to play them hands together if that's what's involved, and then get it to stage two, which is just keep it really steady and do work with the metronome and play everything robotically and everything, no variations. And then she could do that by herself. She didn't need me. And so I thought, well, um, let's go to stage three, because that's the most fun. That's where you do the storytelling is, and dynamics and articulations and timing and tone color and characters and scenery and painting and architecture and physics and all that stuff comes together. She's like, nah, I don't want to do that. And I was like, really? She said, yeah, I just don't want to do that. And I thought, well, but you can do up to stage two completely on your own. You don't need me. She said, yeah. I said, well, you don't need to be paying me so and such for each lesson to have me sit here and listen to you, basically sort of validating what you're already able to do. So she's like, okay. I never saw her again. I don't know what happened to her, but she was very good. I mean, she could learn up to stage two, but she wasn't really interested in taking lessons. And lessons are really, if you think about it, not what you can do. You incorporate that, obviously, but you know, uh, try to get beyond that. Do work on the stuff you can't do. Most people gravitate toward the stuff they can. Um, so um, another kid too. We wrote words to his song, and every, it was really clever, all of it made sense and everything was in the right spots. And I said, now say those words like you're Shakespeare holding the skull, Hamlet, and, we could do an expressive version of that. And then when you go to the instrument, say it out loud and be just as expressive. Some words are louder than others, and, and he started to cry. And I thought, well, gosh, I don't want you to get upset. What about it is upsetting to you? And he said, I don't even know. So I said, okay, let's make it more of a mechanical thing. So we came up with trombone positions. And so instead of having dynamics that went 1 through 7, 7 being the loudest, 1 being the softest, I said, let's just go, close to your body is 1, furthest away is 7, and here's how you define it in between. And he could do that. And so he, even though it wasn't as convincing, he approximated what I wanted. And what I liked about that is when piano, you lean forward usually when you're trying to be louder because your body weight goes in and you pull your body weight back. You got neutral hands that you're flavoring and absorbing body weight. You're flavoring your hands with that body weight. So, or removing it too. Um, anyway, there's other things I could tell you too, all sorts of things I've heard over the years. I've had students that try to hijack the lessons too. And so they'll try to, instead of working on the stuff they need to, they will, they didn't practice all week, and maybe they'll just try to gear it toward, um, the stuff they worked on. And so you can't do that either when you're a student. You have to really, really just work on the stuff that you can't do well. Sometimes you'll spend the entire lesson on 2 measures or 1 measure on the stuff that was the hardest for you to learn how to play. That's actually where the most learning happens, is where the challenge is. So anyway, that's my little diatribe going off. But does that make sense? The next step, this is the last part I'm going to say, because I might save this for another video, is the left hand. So I don't even know what it is. So here it is. So what we would do is we would take the left hand separately and do the pluck, pluck, pluck finger number, pitches, sorry, say them out loud, make little groups, figure out the finger numbers, do them on, separate from the instrument, then meld together the pitches and the finger numbers, and then add the counting in. Counting, you also figure out off the instrument. You just have to be able to just say what it is and what you think, point to it if it's written on sheet music. The third step after that, this is all still stage 1, just putting it together, is hands together. So if you notice, it goes essentially right, 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 together, left, left, right, together, right, 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 together, left, left, right, right. Does it make sense? You would do that completely off the instrument. You go, whatever it is, here's a together, here's a right, here's a left, okay? And you would be able to be comfortable with that basic coordination. You're not dealing with the minutia and the finer details. You're just getting club arms, getting that basic coordination. I've had students that can do each hand separately perfectly, but they don't have the basic coordination. It's something as simple as, well, this hand was supposed to go up and you went down, or something like that. After doing that in your lap, the rights and togethers and the combinations thereof, then you have a choice. Here's the fork in the road: is you can stay in your lap and do your counting. So you go right. So you say, and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So I had all the together rights and lefts where they're supposed to be on my lap, the gross version of it, just club arms. And I'm not dealing with all the finer minutia details. And I got it right. I had the coordination correct. And I call that, when you're at that stage, that's essentially called sloppy counting. And that's fine. Sloppy is not good, better, and different. All it is that you're assigning the correct counting number with the move. So it's either off the harp in your lap, you either say the togethers and rights and lefts. When you get to the counting part of that, you have to do the together, right, and left with the correct counting. So whatever you're saying has to coordinate with either a left or left or right or together. Here's where the fork in the road is. You could have, after doing together, right, left on your lap, you can do it right in the instrument. So that's exactly what I just showed you before. Right, 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 together, left, left, right, together, right, 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 together, right, right, left, left. And notice I'm doing it totally out of rhythm. I'm stopping in between so I can think about it. And that's great. That's fine. This is called sloppy version. And sloppy's part of it. In stage 1, just putting it all together. Did I just do the counting, or did I say? I don't even know what I did. Here's the fork in the road, is that instead of going from together, right, left in your lap to together, right, left on the harp, you could go together, right, left and counting in your lap, and then do together, right, left, and then counting on the harp. I find a lot of people, they try to get to the very last stage first without going through those other three stages. So, and then it's just too many things at once, too much all at once. And so they're trying to figure out what the counting is and where the coordination is, what finger goes here. And they get overwhelmed. That's understandable. So would I. I have a passages of music I literally can't play until I figure it out. They're so complex where the rights and lefts and togethers are. You know, it's not so much what the exact notes are. It's just the basic coordination. Um, so after that is called stage two. I go over this in another video I made, another off the cuff. And that's, if you look for that one, I think it's the dynamics one is where I talk about it. Um, I kind of do a review of stage one, two, and then I go to stage three and talk about, how to use dynamics, in different ways. Um, but stage two is all about robot. So that's when you start working with the metronomes, and everything should sound completely no variation. Everything's equal and even. So if it's going to be loud, it'll be N4, N1, N2, N3, N4, N1, N2, N3. And I didn't do it so well right there. I'd have to really be concentrating and be very controlled. The slower speeds are where it's at. N4, N1, N2, that idea. Try to keep everything equal. If it's all equally soft, N4, N1, N2, and 3. You're trying to keep it steady, and you're trying to keep the volume constant. And I have people that walk in, on me practicing, their jaws go, like, you practice that slowly? I'm like, yeah, all the time, even up until the moment of the performance. I'm practicing backstage, that slowly too. That's when you also try to get, slow, medium, and fast speeds. Your medium is probably going to be the performance speed. Fast is going to be way faster to ever perform it. And then slow is usually where I spend most of the time, and I build very gradually so I don't notice, that it's, getting faster. You want to keep it so that you can always do it. That's the key, is that you're able to do a speed without making any mistakes. And that, again, can be incredibly slow, but it's that foundation is what you build from. And if you get that, I can guarantee you'll get faster. So, faster sooner, does that make sense? Stage three is, again, I'd already gone over that in another video, so I won't go over that here, but that's where you become more expressive, and it's all intentional. And I'm not saying that you can't be, disclaimer, I've mentioned this before in the other video, that, unless if you are playing the robot song, or if it's a funeral dirge or whatever it is, that your intent, a music box, it's just a mechanical thing, and you don't want to have dynamics that change or timing that changes. You just want it to, just flow all basically stage two, as long as it's intentional, a choice, well, then that's perfectly legit, right? Most pieces, I wouldn't say most, but a lot involve contrast and variety. And so that's where you get a lot of the, dynamics and timing that shift around in particular. So anyway, so I've talked a lot here. I'm just going to play. Here we go. Is that as far as we got? That's as far as I'm going. Okay. Maybe in another video I'll do the rest of it. But this isn't meant to be a tutorial or a note by note, rote by rote sort of expose of how to play this piece. I think now you've got an idea of a step-by-step way to work, and hopefully that's helpful. I hope. I've been kind of chatty. In lessons, they're usually very interactive, so I do chat a bit, but I'm usually asking questions, trying to find out what people are thinking and what they're actually absorbing. And so I just sort of guide them to the answer. I've only got so much time. Sometimes I actually have to really get them there sooner. But give it a try, because if it's not just this piece we're talking about so much as the process. So maybe if you have another piece of music and you do read music, and you want to have a way to effectively learn it so that you don't have to spend so much time practicing and basically feel like you're treading water, give this a try and see if it works. And I hope that helps. And 3 cheers for little green. Thanks for listening.